How you doing today, folks? Now, before we even get started, there is a long-standing, what I will consider to be an issue in the YouTube knife community. People voice something as their opinion, as their own personal biases, or basically they're like, I really like this knife, and because of it, it is the greatest thing ever. It is the gospel's truth of knife making. It cannot be beat, etc., etc., etc. The problem comes when people refuse to acknowledge that something is being biased. It's when they say that it simply is the truth. Not their truth, but the be-all, end-all, definitive truth. That's a problem. Now, with all that being said, the Norseman is a very, very hyped, popular knife. I hear it called a grail almost all the time. I feel like most people fall under one of two categories. Either they've had it or they haven't. And within those two categories, there's people who've had it and refuse to acknowledge its faults. And there's people that haven't had it that basically praise it to the moon and back as being incredible because they heard it's incredible. To be very clear, the Norseman is not a bad knife. However, is it perfect? Is it the be-all, end-all? Is it the grail of grails? Spoiler alert, no. Was it once? Could it have been once? Absolutely. And honestly, if you love it, it's still a grail for you, and that's just fine too. But in 2021, where knife making has come a long, long way, is the Norseman still relevant? Is it still a grail? Is it still the be-all, end-all? Together, let's find out. Alright, so first things first, let's talk about the actual marketing of Grimsmo knives, and as such, the Norseman. John Grimsmo himself builds this as the Rolex of the knife world, as the Ferrari, as the Lamborghini of knife making. Now, the difference between his statement and the reality is so far from the truth, it's kind of ridiculous. Those brands he references so casually constantly innovate, and or they literally created the market they currently thrive in. They were the first, and as such, they have dominion in a major, major way. And or it is a constant fight to stay on top with constant levels of innovation and forever and constantly updating every single piece of their products. John Grimsmo, simply put, is damn good at marketing. But here's the problem with that. This case, which makes you feel superior, makes you feel like you bought a truly and genuinely high quality product, when dealing with wholesale pricing, this case cost pennies. You open it up and you feel the solid click. You see everything laid out to your presentation style. Your knife sits here, your tool's right there because you have that security in this assembly. There is the fanciest looking knife, lube, and or oil you can possibly get out. Mind you, I said looking. It is not the best. It has, simply put, a very striking appearance. You see the intricately designed cutouts, the logo. Everything about it reads quality. You pull the knife out, you feel it to be very thin, yet also somehow substantial. You flick it out, it seems reliable. You drop it down, everything so far seems very clean. Underneath the padding lies a sticker which costs pennies to make, and a COA card. Now, to be very clear, how a knife comes packaged bears no true meaning to how it will perform or its genuine and true quality. This is a nice bonus, but when a knife is sold on those bonuses and not the reality, we start to encounter problems. For example, the Norseman's most touted feature is that fantastic action. To be clear, the action is not bad. But do you notice those two double taps? Just in case you missed it, let's try again. Every single time you close this knife, that will happen. That sound you hear is a QC issue. It is also something that happens when this pivot is too loose, which on here we have substantial side-to-side play. We have okay, not bad, but okay up and down play. You might say Grimsmo includes a tool, right? Here's a basic fact. Most people will never actually use this knife, and they'll also never actually adjust it. They very likely won't check for side-to-side play. They very likely will not provide any sort of testing. Now, if you use this tool that Grimsmo does not believe you will actually use, and you torsion just a little bit, you will have a knife that does this. That will fail every single time. But The trade-off is that it is rock solid. There is no blade play, no up and down, no side to side. Now, to be clear, this pivot is not overly tightened. We still have all this way we can go into making it an absolute rock. And then it will not deploy. To be clear, it will deploy as long as you apply constant pressure, and you'll get about this. Though it's an absolute nightmare, and it will not drop shut at all. This is an overly tightened Norseman. So from there, let's torque it to where I had, which is right there. And now the action is by no means what's advertised. You can drop it down with a whole bunch of wrist. There you go. Also notice it only clicked the one time because this is now properly tightened. If you would like it to drop shut, loosen it all that way. Now it'll pop out and do that double bounce. Grimsmo did not invent some fancy proprietary method. That clean drop represents a QC issue that has been rebuilt and marketed as designed that way and is a quality piece. It is a fundamental pro to the knife, not a con. Folks, quality control issues will never be a pro. Do not buy into that bullshit. As you can see, we have one of the latest and greatest models of the Norseman. And what we have here is a frame lock flipper on bearings. There is a million of these knives out there, and somehow even the budget variations of them don't bounce out, and they still have smooth drop shut action and a better design flipper tab. Yet this knife is $960. Also, credit where credit is due, right? To have one tool take apart the entire knife, both the pivot as well as everything else, that's fantastic. I wish all knives did that. Is that feature worth the price tag? No. But it definitely is nice. By the way, folks, $960, $45. Are you kidding me? $45. It is a better flipping knife. It also has better drop shut action and a better design flipper tab that deploys reliably every time. And I do mean every time. While this has minimal jimping, as you can see, the cutouts are actually pretty scratchy looking, kind of poor looking. And the way it's designed, man, you might get it perfectly or it might slide off like that. It's not the best flipper tab by any means. And again, $960. Also, built by machine, built by hand. This is a $1,400 custom by Seraphim Knives. Mine is obviously a bit more decked out than usual, but a standard version of this knife is about $700 to $800 all day long. Built by machine, $960. And then again, folks, 40 bucks. This can be on sale for about $30, and you can have a knife that is not only comparable, but is superior as far as pure action to the Norseman. Another piece this knife is known for is the blade, which you can see is not even ground properly. The bevel swoops up and down. It gets thicker, it gets thinner. It's not even sharpened proper. To be clear though, it still cuts. I'm not taking anything away from the Norseman as far as the edge geometry. It is by no means bad. There is slight bits of tear, like you saw right there, where it just catches a piece, it's not ground properly. But when you actually do hit that spot, which is ground perfectly, it does glide through paper very, very nicely. Through cardboard is much less nice. It's very hard to get through it. It's not the worst I've ever had, but you can hear it in my voice. It's a genuine struggle. You need to put a whole bunch of force down to it, and then it'll go through. Now, as far as the actual ergonomics, this knife does have hot spots. They're not bad though. The ergonomics for the Norseman are actually really good. I cannot knock it too much for that. You will have a hot spot right here where this titanium is so very thin. There's also one right here on this little lip piece. A very, very small one right here on this cutout. But overall, the ergos are pretty damn solid. This clip, and as such the carry of the Norseman, is something else though I'm very impressed by. Is it the slimmest, most slender, best carry of all time? No, but it is pretty damn good. The retention on it is less than ideal, but it does slide in and out of your pocket very, very nicely. It's also never fallen out, so even though the retention could definitely be better, it's by no means bad. Another piece of note is the fit and finish on the Norseman. All of these little grooves, all of this milling, to get this to where it has 0 hot spots, honestly is very labor intensive. And so as far as the fit and finish, there are no burrs, there are no hot spots. Everything is very, very smooth to the touch on all of this milling. I've also owned 2 honeycomb Norsemans as well as a few other ones. They all had similar fit and finish. So as far as everything being chamfered and contoured correctly in hand, I can't complain very much about that at all. That's actually done very, very well. So folks, what we have here is a knife that honestly is not bad. But the man behind it and all the marketing behind it at this point in time is genuinely deceptive. Is this knife worth $960? Absolutely not. CPM 154 or RWL 34, to be clear, they're not bad steels. I actually really enjoy them, but they're not expensive steels. You can find billets and bar stocks of these materials for very, very cheap. The majority of this blade is ground down by a machine. These scales are cut by a machine. Everything is milled out by a machine. It is built by hand, yes. But here's the thing. Give me all of the parts and tell me to build a knife by hand. It'll take me about 45 seconds. It'll take anybody that has experience with taking apart or building knives mere seconds. Seconds that are not worth that hard-earned money. I have owned multiple Norsemans. All of the grinds have always been wonky. It's never ever consistent. There always is a slight wobble to it. There always are dull spots from the factory. That bounce you hear is a QC issue. The flipper tab is not designed properly. Is it bad? No, but it's also not really all that good either. At the end of the day, folks, if you love this knife, if this knife brings you happiness, everything about it you adore, then that is your own personal biased opinion, and you are by all means entitled to it. Honestly, I don't dislike this knife. I've bought 4 of them. That being said though, as an unbiased reviewer, as to be very clear all reviewers should be, I cannot help but look at all the problems this knife has and all of the crazy claims John Grimsmo makes to justify his price tag. If it was a full handmade custom, it'd be an entirely different story, folks, but it's not, man. It's made by a machine. It is a 95% production knife like most knives nowadays are. And the price tag should reflect it in 2021. So, in closing, is the Grimsmo Knives Norseman, and by extension the Grimsmo Knives Rask, and by extension of that the Grimsmo Knives Saga, is it worth it in 2021? Is it relevant in 2021? Honestly, no, it's not. They treat their knives like unicorns, and they treat their customers like whales. And to those unfamiliar, a whale is someone that is willing to spend obscene amounts of money for the proposition of value. To be clear, folks, I am a whale. I'm also very aware of that fact. So if you are not a whale, if the idea of manipulation makes you sick to your stomach, then again, buy knives elsewhere. Is it a bad knife? Absolutely not. As always, folks, I love you all. This is a longer video. I really hate rallying against companies, but I've just been seeing stuff online that's honestly making me sick to my stomach, and everybody else seems afraid to actually go about saying it. Well, you know me, I am not afraid in the least of shooting myself in the foot if it means saving you guys some money or giving you guys the genuine truth nobody else seems to want to. In closing, if you're gonna buy for a custom price, get a custom piece. Do not let people pull the wool over your eyes anymore. As always, folks, I love you all with all of my heart. Take care, have a great day, and bye-bye.
I like to relate us to kind of the Rolex of the industry, the Ferrari of the industry.
No, 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 no.